However, I believe my disadvantage was actually my advantage. You have to, your consumer, you have to know what you're doing. You have to follow your heart. You have to follow your passion. Everyone has something that they can teach somebody, and there should be, every interaction should be mutually beneficial.
At the end of the day, poverty isn't where you live, it's how you think, right?
Hey, you have to work hard, but you have to make sure you're working hard in the right direction for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conversations That Count podcast. Today, I'm here with my good friend, Ken. He is an amazing individual. And before I start introducing him, I'm going to pass it over to him, let him introduce himself.
No, I appreciate that, Dave. I'm really excited about the opportunity to speak with you this evening. A little bit about myself. I'm a native Detroiter. Go Cass. Went to University of Michigan, was in the business school there, Stephen M. Ross School of Business, where I pursued a bachelor's of business administration with an emphasis in marketing strategy. And currently I am amongst other things, my main day-to-days, I am the digital marketing manager for the Mid-Atlantic region with Stellantis, which formerly known as Fiat Chrysler Automobiles.
I love it. And I love the fact you're a digital media marketing manager, right? Because everything you do, everything you provide is how can I communicate with people at large, which is amazing.
And not only that, but it's the way of the future. That I love about my job is there may be 2 days that are the same, but outside of that, there is not going to be any repetition because the way that consumers engage with digital media changes day to day. TikTok, and we see the adoption that it had in such a short amount of time. It's crazy how many brands and companies just flocked to the tool. And this is that I would say maybe 5 years ago, no one thought was going to be a platform that we would be using for advertising. But now when you look at some of the statistics, TikTok is one of the most advertised on platforms. That's just one of the beauties of my job is constantly looking at the market, looking at what consumers are engaging in, and finding the best way to integrate our brands with their lifestyles.
No, I love that. I literally just bought something because it was on a TikTok advertisement. I'm starting to think I have a TikTok addiction. So that's a great place to have that marketing. And actually that leads me to really my first question. Based on what you said, you really know your stuff, right? You know what you're doing, you know your products, but you're a really young individual. So I have to ask, right, to be your age, be as successful as you are already, I can only imagine that you've had some mentors in your life. And I'd love to hear at least about one conversation that you had with them that counted and really had an impact on you.
I'm 25 and I am the youngest digital marketing manager in Stellantis history. Wow. I came into the role when I was 24. And a lot of that came from, to your point, having not only mentors, but just having career advocates in my corner. And I would say, like, out of all the mentors that I've had, the one that's most aligned with the work that I do, two individuals who were digital marketing managers, and I was their intern in the summer of 2018. And I looked at them and I saw these two amazing women who were doing amazing things in a male-dominated industry. And I remember having a conversation with them and I was like, I want to get into this space, but how do you do it? Like, how do you navigate it? And the biggest thing that they told me was, and that stuck with me so tough because that is something that not only do I resonate with in my own personal, social, professional mantras, but that's something that a lot of my other mentors indicated to me as well. And so to hear that from two individuals who are, I wouldn't say senior in the automotive industry, but they've had 5 to 10 years of experience in the auto space, just to hear them say that reignited, like, okay, like, this is something that I could be passionate about. And then when I connected my summer internship experience to just being a Detroiter and being an advocate car lover, it aligned perfectly. And I think it just allowed for me to really take my career and just take my life by the reins and just say, this is what I want to go for. And I'm gonna just lead with passion to get there. And that's something that I've not only been able to do, but I feel as though I've been able to thrive with over the past 3 years that I've been working full-time with Stellantis.
That's amazing. Right. So it sounds like, I mean, heck, you grew up in the Motor City, right? We're known for vehicles here. So I can imagine that had a huge impact on you, especially growing up. I love the idea, though, that then you took that passion and you said, not only will I come in and I'm going to do everything I can to dominate the space, but I'm going to do it with my own energy, my own passion, and with my own personality. And I can't imagine, right, being 24, starting off, now 25. I can't imagine that was always an easy place to be and not kind of fall into almost the fold of doing things.
I would Yes and no. And the
Okay.
reason why it's kind of twofold is the automotive industry is a 100-year-old industry. And to be
Yeah.
completely frank here, a lot of the leaders within the space have a very similar look and very similar background. On paper, I'm at a disadvantage for coming into this space. However, I believe my disadvantage was actually my advantage. When coming in as an intern, I had no agenda. When I was an undergrad, I used to be a career coach. So whenever I used to talk to my
Wow.
students, both BBAs and MBAs that I would coach, I would say, don't do what I did when it comes to recruiting. I applied to 100 different companies, and I just was like, okay, the first one that I get, I'm gonna take. So Chrysler was actually the first company to reach out to me, to offer me an interview, and I did the 2 rounds.
Okay.
And I say it was the best mistake of my life because it was then when I was able to go out to New York and work out of the Northeast Business Center, which is the pretty much the entire Northeast. They manage all of the Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep sales in that region.
Wow.
And when I was able to go and work in that team, I realized two things. One, there's not enough diversity and inclusive and collaborative thought within the automotive space. And I found I wouldn't even say a niche, but I just found a area that I knew that I can grow. So I guess it would be a niche. But the second thing I noticed is it's something that I'm innately good at. And I don't know if it comes from both of my grandparents working in automotive factories in Detroit. I don't know if it just comes from me growing up in Detroit, or if it comes from me being a 24, 25-year-old in this space that actually understands the digital, not only understands digital, but understands social media. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about it being a kind of both sided, both being a disadvantage and an advantage of like, yeah, coming into the space when I first started, I was an area sales manager. And so that's pretty much more one-on-one consultation with a select number of dealers. I was stationed in Connecticut, and I had to garner the respect of my dealers because, like, you're the youngest rep we've ever had. What do you know?
Yeah.
And it was kind of a ball buster because it's all about you have to be able to talk your shit and be able to back it up. But it was also rooted in like true, genuine, what do you know? Like, what value add can you bring me? Like, you just graduated college. So it forced me to be on top of my shit. Where 3 years later, I still have dealers who call and reach out to me, not just on a personal level, but on a, hey, can you help me on this? Or can you provide resources on this? Because I learned and I was very quick with it. And it was very much a being kind of more authentic of myself, like, hey, if I don't know something, I'm gonna get back to you. And there was one instance where I was talking to a dealer, they were a newer dealer, automotive dealer, and they were asking me something about an incentive or something along those lines. And I told him, I don't know. Let me reach out to the team and I'll get back to you. And he said, Ken, you're the first rep that I've had to tell me that you don't know something. And I appreciate that because there was a rep who told
That's
me that they did
amazing.
something and it wasn't right. And they cost me $20,000.
Oh
So
my
it's like,
gosh.
yeah. And it's just kind of like those moments where, yes, I'm young and yes, little black gay boy from Detroit, first generation college student, you wouldn't expect to be able to thrive in this space, but it's those identifying factors that really makes me a decent at my job. Where it's like, yes, I'm coming into this space with a different perspective, but I'm also coming into this space with a perspective that is more representative of our target audience in terms of vehicles that we're trying to sell, brands that we hold within our portfolio, than those who don't share some of those same diversity traits.
Wow. You said a lot of amazing things there. I want to break it down just a little
Yeah.
because I can relate a lot to what you're saying. And it actually took me back to my early days when I first started writing mortgages and originating them and helping clients, right? Because I first started off, I was 23 years old. And imagine trying to tell someone what to do with the biggest investment they've ever made. And I remember stepping into it, right? And thinking, well, I'm gonna, even if I don't know the answer, I'll make something up. I'll come with on the spot, right? Because I'm fresh out of college. I think I know everything. And even if I don't know it, I'll act like I do. And someone gave me the same advice that you just kind of knew, which is a blessing, right? But I remember I was talking to a client. I didn't have the answer. And I started making something up. And now I'm a director, but I'll listen to like my salespeople's calls, make sure they're telling people the right thing.
Yeah.
And I had a director at the time. And when I tell you, he started messaging me saying, hey, I need you to pause your phone, right? He stopped me right there. He said, I need you to put the client on hold real quick. Tell him you'll be back 3 to 5 minutes. And I did just that. And I'm like, I wonder if he's going to tell me how great I did. The opposite. He said, what you said made absolutely no sense. Why would you say that if you don't know the right answer? Why would you make that up? This is their home we're dealing with. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. We'll get to the same result. And he's like, no, it matters completely because what's going to happen is either A, they're going to figure out you're a liar, which is no one wants to work with a liar, or B, you're going to tell them something that's incorrect that they think is the truth, and that's going to hurt them later in the future.
Exactly.
Every action has a consequence, right? And so he actually said, hey, it's okay to say that you don't know, right? Young, because I'm a young kid, barely went through college, grew up on Section 8. I didn't even know what money was. And here I am lending out hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars to people for their homes. So I don't want them to figure out that I'm a phony. I don't know what I'm doing. But it actually turned out, to your point, clients actually appreciated so much when I would say, hey, I don't have the answer. If you give me just a minute, I'm going to call someone who I think will. And I put them on a hold and I do it, and they're so grateful. And to your point, I have clients now. I'm not even client facing. I run a team, but I still have clients now who will reach out, call, email me. And I've been running a team for almost 2 years now. Still have clients that are like, hey, David, I know you don't do this anymore, but you're the one I want to work with.
Exactly.
And to your point, it's that level of just honesty and true communication with your clients, which I think is huge.
I think it's funny that you mentioned that a home purchase, most individuals, first most expensive investment, because automotive purchases are the second most expensive purchase. So funny, because we do have that commonality, and it's very similar in the auto space. It's been times when I've even had customers, and I'm not customer facing, the audience is our dealer network. But I've had where the dealership ask me a direct question about a specific deal or a specific incentive, or if we can get something moved around or something for a specific customer because they're loyal. And I'm like, okay, let me work some kid magic here. Let me see what I can do. And the dealership tell the customer, yes, this was happening because of our rep. Boom, boom, boom. And the customer reached out and like, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It really feels good to know that somebody at corporate actually cares about your customers. And it's just like those small moments, in my opinion, are what make not only my job all the roles I've had so meaningful, but it just also makes life meaningful when you're able to actually make a positive impact in someone else's life.
No, I completely agree. And actually that transitions me to another question I've really been dying to ask you. Because as we transition from being the direct person working with clients directly to leading people and helping them deal with clients, right? I know we're always there. To your point, it's good to know someone at corporate cares. But what do you say are some of the biggest things you do so that the people that work under you can provide the same level of service that you did when you were in their shoes? Is there anything specific you've talked about?
So my direct report that currently is actually from part of our program, our digital program management company called Shift Digital. Okay. And so I've never actually had the role that he's in now, but it's very similar to roles that I've either been around or experienced throughout my either full-time role working with Chrysler or my 2 internships. And it's interesting because he's a bit older, he's 20, and so it's kind of interesting to have that dynamic where like I'm younger than him, but I'm also his manager. And so I take a very lateral leadership style because I'm a firm believer of everyone has something that they can teach somebody, and every interaction should be mutually beneficial. And when I say that, I mean, yes, there are some things that may have to be delegated, but also it's, hey, you're not just working for me to look good. I also need to work for you to make sure that when you're ready, you can get a role that surpassed mine. Because that's been a big motto of mine in every capacity of my life of like, as I move forward in life, I want to make sure that I'm always able to pull back into whatever community I'm in. Currently, I'm based out of Baltimore, so I've been living here for about 1.5 years, but Detroit's always going to be home. And so I always try to do things where I can pull back to push up. So in the work capacity, one of the biggest things I do is I try to get my direct report as much exposure to senior leadership, as much exposure to leading projects on his own and kind of like presenting deliverables, training, support. Because at the end of the day, not only is he a representation of me, but he has to know that I fully trust him and his autonomy and his perspective. Because the reason why he was hired on was because obviously he had experience, he had some tenacity, he had some value add that he could provide to the organization. And my thing is, why should I limit that with my own agenda if we can get more done if I actually put trust in him? So I will say that's the biggest thing is like trusting my direct report, providing an abundance of wraparound resources for him to not only grow professionally, but also grow socially, also grow personally, because he's a very intelligent guy. He worked in the dealership. He knows digital. Hell, he knows digital better than me. But there are a lot of more of the professional development skills that I noticed right away where it's like, okay, we're going to hone in on this. We're going to hone in on public speaking. We're going to hone in on not only trusting your experience, but being able to convey that in a very confident manner. In the sense of like, there'll be times we're in a meeting and it's like, it's something I know that he knows, and it's like he's just very timid when he's speaking. And so I pull him aside and I'm like, no, like, I need for you to own this shit. This is your stuff. You've researched it. You've played with it. Own it. And those are kind of some of the things that I believe makes a good manager. And the last thing that I will say is always putting your team first. And what I mean by that is, as managers, we're only as good as our team. So if we're not putting our team members first and be like, okay, are you good? What do you need me to do? Do you need me to step in and lighten up some of your workload to make sure that you're performing at the way that you need to perform? Because it's like having an engine. You're not going to go anywhere. So it's like you have to make sure that your team holistically are just in a good spot. And if you have to get in the weeds, get in the weeds. I'll give this prime example, then I'll go over to another topic. About 3 weeks ago, Wagoneer, which is one of the brands within our portfolio, we sponsored a horse race down in Baltimore called the Preakness. And this is a horse race where all the up and ups come in. It's a very notable event within the Mid-Atlantic region. And we have the amazing opportunity to be one of the corporate sponsors. And we found out from the event team that they were sending out an individual to set up. Now, mind you, this was no just pop-up tent type of situation. We had a whole floor plan of stuff that we were bringing in. We're bringing in tents and tables, and we're bringing in Wagoneer and all these different things. And it was just one young lady who was meant to set up all of this. And so then I connected with her, and I'm like, hey, I live 20 minutes out. Do you need help? And she's like, oh my God, yes. So the 2 days before the event, I'm out in mud and dirt and cold, rainy weather with barely any attire, because like I didn't really know what I was getting into. I'm thinking it's like, oh yeah, just clean up this or that. And we're up until 2:00 in the morning, setting up tents and setting up this and that and the third and putting potting flowers and all these different things. And it's not because I had to, but it's because I knew what needed to get done. So it's like, I don't mind going out into the trenches, rolling up my sleeves and getting dirty, because at the end of the day, I hate to say it's all for the greater good, because I feel like that makes what we do sound much more glorified than it actually is. We're sell cars, like we're not rocket scientists here, but it shows that no matter what, there is no I in team, and everyone should be able to do everyone's role within a certain scope to make the larger plan come to action.
No, I love that. One thing I want to talk about that more, but I have to ask, what is that phrase you said, push up to pull forward? What did you say?
Yeah. So pretty much as I move forward, and I want to make sure I'm able to pull back to move to push ahead. But it's one of those things where I don't feel as though first generation college student who have been granted, I'm not a believer in fate. I'm a believer of everything happens for a reason, and everything happens at the right time at the right place. And a lot of opportunities, mentorship opportunities, internship opportunities, school, all these different things, they all came about at the right time in my life, where it's kind of serendipitous and you kind of think, this is all planned. Everything is strategically placed like a game of checkers or chess. And it's like, okay, who's playing this right now? But everything happens for a reason. So it's like, I know that without one of those experiences, without one of those mentors, without one of those opportunities, I would not be in the position I am in today. And so because of that, I make it one of my missions in life to be able to give back and be able to help as many people as possible, either in the automotive space or in any other industry, as a career coach or as just a mentor or however, to push them ahead of me. Because I want to see you succeed. I know where I'm going. And of course, you have to continue to get advocates and continue to get mentors. But like, I'm in a good position in my life, thank God. But there are a lot of other people who don't have that same support, who don't have that same love. I had the opportunity back in 2016 to intern with the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools. And that experience opened my eyes to the disparity of resource, of academic rigor, of a host of other things that a lot of Detroit youth face. And it was one of those things where it's like, you don't really realize until you're through it and until you kind of get the experience, post-secondary experience. But then it's like, okay, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to make this? How are we going to change this narrative? And this is something that's seen in a host of other urban communities. One of the really big reasons why I've enjoyed my time in Baltimore so much is because the geographic, socioeconomic, demographic statistics are very similar to Detroit. The whole dynamic here is very similar to Detroit. And because of that, you have the highs and you have the lows. And that's one reason why I'm sitting on a board now of a nonprofit called Transforming Youths into Adults that work with foster care, foster youth who are transitioning out the foster care system, and was providing wraparound services for them. It's like, these are the same type of elements that are going on in Detroit. These are the same type of elements that are going on in other urban communities. And it takes people who are able to make it out of those situations and who are in a better socioeconomic and just overarching academic position to be able to pour back into the community. I'm gonna say this, and we can go to the next topic. While I was interning with superintendent, I remember being at a town hall, and one of the, I think it was either a recent graduate or soon to be high school graduate, told us that their definition of success is either leaving Detroit and never coming back, or coming back and making a difference. And there are so many people who leave the city, be it Detroit, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Baltimore, whatever urban community that they grew up in, and never go back because that's their definition of success. And more power to them. That's great. But personally, that's not how I roll. I'm a firm believer of if this community poured all their resources into me growing up, it's up to me to be able to pay that forward.
Head note for anyone listening to this that grew up in Detroit, right? Detroit is coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I work with Rocket, and a lot of what we're doing down there is growing. We're working on building a lot of cool stuff, right? I almost said what I'm supposed to, but we're working on creating a lot of great things down there. And I encourage everyone, if you love Detroit, if you've been to Detroit, even just come and visit. The downtown will shock you. It'll blow your mind, because you're 100% right. I know people who have left Detroit and they're like, I'm never coming back. And I ask why? Why would you not want to come back to the city that built you? And shout out to all the kids who struggled and worked. And if you're still working and trying to make it out, don't just think about how can I make it out of my area. At the end of the day, poverty isn't where you live, it's how you think, right? It doesn't matter where you go in the world, you'll end up in poverty again if you don't change the way you think. So change the way you think, bring that thought back to where you grew up. That's my encouragement, my little soapbox for the day. And I want to ask too, right? Because I think that's also awesome. I've gotten to speak to a few other individuals who are part of nonprofits, and I'd love to hear how you mentor in the early stages instead of even like the later stages, right? Because someone who's already seen the world, who's experienced the highs and lows of success, sometimes it's a little easier to mentor someone in that situation than it is someone who's never gotten to see success, right? Like, tell me when I was riding a bus with my grandma that, hey, one day you might be driving any car you want. It's like, well, I don't even know what that car would be.
Exactly.
I've never been in it, right? So can you give me an example of what a conversation you might have had with maybe one of your mentees at the nonprofit, people you've seen struggling, trying to make their lives better?
Yeah, no. So before going into this question, I kind of want to go to a prior experience I had with a nonprofit in Detroit. So when I was at Cass, it was my junior and senior year, I was part of co-op. And so I had the opportunity to work half the day, I think I took like 4 classes, then went to work. So I'm like, that's a pretty cool schedule. But I had the opportunity to support a nonprofit called the Skillman Foundation.
Wow.
And when I had the opportunity to work with Skillman, that was my first exposure to nonprofit work. And working with them opened my eyes to not only the disparity that Detroit youth and Detroit young people face, but the disparity that a lot of Black and brown individuals in urban communities face. And even I kind of want to asterisk saying Black and brown, because realistically, it's not even a race thing, even though a portion of it is. It's more of an under-resourced situation, because there are many people from different creeds and different backgrounds that live in under-resourced communities. And that's I don't care how much people say it's not a money and it's not a race thing. It's a combination of that and more. It's a lot of dynamics that create these disparities within our community. But working with Skillman, it kind of opened my eyes to seeing the impact that nonprofits and organizations that are solely funded and focused on making impacts in whatever social change or social movement that they are developed for, created for, founded for, that it was like, okay, this is something I want to be a part of. And this is something that not only do I find a calling in, but this is also something that I know I can make the most impact in the world. And that was something that I took to college. Now, of course, nonprofit space, private sector, money and resource-wise.
Very big difference.
I kind of had to put one on the back burner for a minute. But being able to kind of come full circle and get the opportunity to be on this board for this nonprofit has been amazing. I think one of the biggest things, I can talk about the board experience first, and then I'll talk about another experience I've had talking with some mentees to answer your original question. Sitting on the board is very unique because, again, youngest person on the board, most early tenure in terms of their career on the board. However, I've been able to be an avid voice because a lot of the youth that we're targeting and working with are a couple years younger than me. The Baltimore foster
Really?
care system actually allows for youth to stay in the system until the age of 21. And so the program that we created actually extends past that to the age of 20 because we actually provide the opportunity for youth to develop a financial plan so that they can buy the homes that we own, that they're staying in, and that would be their first piece of property. And
now are these individual homes that they live in, or is it like
yes? So the nonprofit, we have multiple different style homes, lofts, those apartments that we own, and pretty much the plan is to provide a host of resource workshops and skills to allow for these youth to become homeowners before the age of 25.
That's amazing.
It's an up and coming nonprofit. It's been established for about 3 years, but there's so much traction behind it. And the biggest thing that I recognize here is outside of the financial component of it, there are so many other, I don't even want to say issues, but there are so many other life skills that are needed for late teens, early 20s in order to navigate it. There are so many things personally, socially, that you have to navigate and deal with in your late teens and early 20s that I could just imagine as someone who had resources, who had support systems, who had access to different opportunities. If I went through those type of things, individuals who have been either displaced or who have not had those opportunities or those same type of resources, I can just imagine how those same emotions, feelings, and issues are magnified. And so when I came into the nonprofit, my main focus was how can we provide more wraparound services for these young people, because I know what they're going through. I mean, I think the pandemic in itself was rough enough for everyone, but then it's like, okay, this is just like one of the top things that I think about on a constant basis. As adults, how do you make friends? Like and we think of that as a very kind of, not even cliche, but a very like ha chuckle comment. But then when you really start thinking about it, it's like, how many adult friendships have you made that didn't stem from college, that didn't stem from work, that didn't stem from something where you are forced to be together? And when you add in a layer of homelessness or poverty or being displaced, and you don't have those same groups or communities to build those connections with, it's how do you build those type of connections with people? And then if you think about networking events, if you think about social outings, if you think about all these things, a lot of those things cost a lot of money or cost money just in general. 100%. And so again, it creates this dynamic of, well, how do you go about this? How do you navigate this if you don't have those resources, if you don't have those experiences? And I'm not saying that every youth that was part of the program, or every youth that is homeless or displaced is not in school or is not educated or don't have those experiences, but there are still dynamics within that doesn't create a full psychologically safe individual, and that creates an individual that has a lot of mental tax. Because, hey, if you don't know where you're sleeping at night, the last thing you're thinking about is making friends. So it's like, it's a lot of about a friend. Things that you kind of have to think about. And they're kind of pivoting into your original question about having those conversations with someone who haven't necessarily had some of those life skills and life experiences. I actually want to revert back to my college days where, well, even not in my college days, I'll say mentoring still with University of Michigan, because I'm still a part of some organizations on campus where I still am a mentor. And so there's a lot of first year and sophomore students who I engage with, talk to, present to. And one of the main things they ask me is, how are you so successful? Or how have you gotten to where you are? Like, I wish I could see myself in that same trajectory. And the biggest thing is like, you can do it and you can do more. Nothing that I've done has been either granted to me, given to me, silver spoon, or is anything that's just completely out of the way. When I was in college, I had 6 jobs. And of course, it was for the money.
Wait, 6 jobs at once or 6 jobs altogether?
At one time, I had 6 jobs at once.
Oh, wow.
And I'm gonna dive into that a little bit. I was always very strategic in the work that I chose. Mm-hmm. All the roles that I've had were either some type of community outreach or was marketing. So, I was a peer coach for the career development office within Ross School of Business. I was a peer advisor for a learning community within Ross. I was a social media strategist for a nonprofit in Ann Arbor, marketing associate for another learning community on campus. I actually opened up and ran my own marketing agency, which I did, continued after college for a couple of years. And I had the opportunity to work as a peer mentor for another learning community. So, I was able to have a lot of money to blow in college. But more importantly, I was able to develop my skill set early so that when it was time to go to internships, when it was time to start working, full time, there was already abundant amount of skills that I've already stored up. And so, and I say that to say nothing I've done is granted to me. I've worked my ass off to get where I'm at. And as long as you have that determination, as long as you have that passion, as long as you have that fire, you can do anything. But the other thing that I always preface anyone, especially those I'm mentoring, is all that's fine, but you also have to make sure that you're following your North Star and you're following your passion. Because I'm a firm believer of, I'm not a money motivated person. I love money, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to do something because of a dollar. And that's one thing I try to instill with youth in general, no matter what aspect of life they're in, because it's so easy, and not to pick on you, but it's so easy to get into the finance industry. It's so easy to go to accounting or IB or consulting because of the paycheck. Not saying that it's easy to get into those spaces, but in terms of if you're looking at, what do I want to do with my life? Oh, okay, well, I want to make a lot of money. Let me go into consulting. Let me go into investment banking. Let me go into here. Let me go into there. But if that's not really what you're passionate about, a year or two in, you're going to be burnt out and you're going to hate your job. I have a lot of peers who I graduated from business school with. They're in that same position where it's like, I hate my job. I'm making decent money, but I just can't do this shit anymore. And for me, it's the complete inverse. I still like my job. I still like my job. And it's like, that's something that a lot of people can't say, but that's just one of those really strong pieces of advice that I try to give is, hey, you have to work hard, but you have to make sure you're working hard in the right direction for you.
No, I mean, you're 100% right. A lot of people come into the finance industry. To your point, how can I make as much money as I can? How can I retire early? And honestly, those people never make it the long term. I've had a lot of those people work for me and they'll do really well for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Right. Something that, because I was one of those people early on where I was like, well, I'll do this, not because I want to, but because I know I can make a lot of money, help my family, take care of the people I love, right? But as I started getting mentored by the people who were able to find longevity, something that they taught me early on is that we're not here just to make a dollar. If you're here just to make a dollar, you'll probably make a few, but you won't be here very long.
Yeah.
But we're here, and the reason we're even compensated as much as we are is because of the impact we can have on people, right? Because people, if I can help someone either by refinancing their home, getting the money, paying off their debts, helping them get their first home, that's an enormous life impact, right? And if I'm just doing it for $1, I'm probably not going to help as many people as I could. And I'm going to be tired of it because I'm not going to see the true benefit. But for the people that realize, yes, the industry, you can make a lot of money, but it's the same thing with anything where you can make a lot of money. You only make it because of the level of impact you can have on people. So to your point, right? I would encourage everyone to follow something they're passionate about. Now, I got lucky. I came in here looking to make a lot of money, and then I found my passion after that. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's why I became a leader rather than staying as a banker, right? Because I realized I could if I have a larger impact on my team, I could then send that team out to have a larger impact on more people than I ever could by myself. And it's allowed me to do much bigger things for a lot more people at a larger scale. But you're not wrong, right? It is easy to just jump into something like that, but it's not easy to stay for the exact reason you claim. So good point. Now, something I want to ask you, right? Say you have someone who might be, because something I love that you talked about way earlier is you brought up failure, right? When you went to your first job, you didn't feel like you had really found necessarily your passion, right? What advice do you have for people out there to really find that passion in anything they do, right? Maybe before they find that job that isn't for them, or even after. How do you find that North Star?
So I'm a firm believer that you have to fail forward and you have to embrace failure. And the reason why is at the end of the day, failure is just an experience to show you this may not be the right way to do something at this moment in time. But it's not meant to say you should never do it again. And it's not meant to discourage you from trying other avenues. I look at failure as the same as rejection if you're dating. Like if you're dating and you shoot your shot and your partner is like, no, I'm not interested. Well, you're not going to stop dating. Maybe a little butthurt for a couple hours, but then you're going to come to the next person like, hey, what's up? So failure, other capacities in your life have to be seen in the same capacity, because the worst thing somebody can say is no. And if someone says no for you, that means that was not an opportunity, that was not an experience, that was not a endeavor that was meant for you. Everything that's meant for you will be. And if you have that mentality, you have that belief, failure will come more as failure will be accepted and accepted with open arms because you knew that wasn't for you. Because what's the purpose of going down the rabbit hole of getting something and you hate it? And if you shift your mindset to say, I didn't get this because it wasn't meant for me, and the next thing is going to be bigger and better, that's the biggest way to kind of go about navigating failure. Because at the end of the day, there are very few things in life where failure is a true life or death situation.
Very
Most
rare.
of the time, if you're failing at something, hell, I'll give a personal example. So picture it, I'm taking calculus, it's like fall 2016 semester. I don't do math. That's why I'm not in finance accounting. I don't do any of that. I can develop a marketing strategy in my sleep, but give me a balance sheet to balance out. No. FIFO, low, all that, no. But of course, before getting into the business school at Ross, you have to take calculus and a set of other financial courses. So I'm in calculus, and it's me and my college family. We're still together to this day, and I was actually with them recently, just 2 weekends ago, and I told them, I was like, yeah, y'all know the reason I passed calculus. Because I kid you not, I did my first exam, I think I got maybe like a B, C, something. I got my second exam, I got an E. And I didn't even know college is without E. So when I was taking the exam, I clammed up, I pressured up. I was so just like, I just knew I wasn't going to do well when I left half of the exam blank. And so I got the E, and I was distraught. I was like, I'm not going to get into Ross. I'm not going to do this. I need to just drop out. I don't deserve to be here, all this stuff. And it took a couple people talking me down. It level set me to realize, okay, I just have to change my study habits, have to change my direction of how I'm doing things, and I have to make something shake. And so then after that, I was going to office hours. I was studying constantly. I was taking these practice exams, and I was being more proactive of asking questions, making it known, hey, I don't know this. Let's go over this again. And I passed class. Also having that relationship with our professor, hey, what I'm trying to do, like, give me some extra problems, give me some extra things so I can do. And again, that's why I say with failure, you should think of it as a pivot. Because at the end of the day, hey, if I would have kept going down the hole that I was going in, and let's say I didn't fail, let's say I got another C on that exam, then that final exam, I really might have failed and would have flunked out the course. And then it would have been, again, having to redo the whole thing all over again. Whereas me failing at this one point and changing and redirecting, I was able to do what I need to do to get what I need to get out of that course.
That's an awesome story. That's a good example of failure too.
Yeah, very good. Look, I always say C's get degrees. So
wow, you're full of quotes, Ken. I love it.
I honestly need to, because it's funny. I did a creative writing minor in undergrad. I'm like, I just need to write a book or something. I need to actually just put all of this that's in my head down on paper.
No, I remember, and I have a similar example when I first got to college, right? So not business school, not as fancy as you, not yet, but I remember in high school, right? I never had to study. I could do the homework before I left high school. Like before I got out of class, I was usually done so I could get home and do whatever I wanted. I'll never forget. I even had a class that was created for me just for writing because I turned out to be so good at it. Mm-hmm. But then I got to college and I ended up having to write a paper for a professor. And I'll never forget getting back my paper and him I think it was by percentages, but I think it equated to like a C. And I was shocked. I was like, whoa, I haven't gotten a C on a paper since like middle school.
Right.
What are you talking about? This can't be right. Are you sure you graded my paper? You sure you didn't get it mixed up with someone else's? He made it very clear. And he said, well, sit down. I'll tell you all about how you could have done better. And I said, okay, let's see you try. When I tell you, he spent probably 30 to 45 minutes of his office hours, right? With people sitting outside, just sitting there telling me one after another of things I could have done better. I walked out shocked. In awe, just wow. And at first I was upset and I couldn't believe that he had the nerve to tell me that my paper wasn't good. But then I really sat down and I read it a few more times and I took in his feedback and I said, wow, he was right. And I made a similar change, right? I started going to office hours. I started getting reviews from my peers before I even turned it in. I would go through and grammar check it multiple times and those C's started turning into, right? And those B's would turn into A's. And before I know it, it started getting easy all over again. But to your point, if I never would have taken that loss, right, taken that opportunity for growth, I never would have done better in the future. I never would have grown and taken my papers even more serious. So
again, everything that's meant for you is for you. Because again, in your example, if you never would have, if you would never gotten that C, or because even though, you have to think about, you have to kind of remove the whole like F for failure thing out. And it's just like, failure is on an internal grading scale. So for you, if you've been knocking out A, yes, a C is a failure for you, but everything that's meant to be is to be. If you wouldn't have changed direction, and let's just say that professor passed you, then the next professor, it probably would have been way worse. It probably would have been a harder learning curve moving forward. And I say the same thing for me. If I wouldn't have put in the effort to do what I need to do in that calculus class, I wouldn't get into the business school. And I knew the business school was for me. I had to go to backwards version of my own mantra. Like, okay, well, this is for me. So how do I get there? But same sentiment of just like, you have to be able to accept and embrace failure with open arms, learn from it, grow from it, and move forward. I have a firm belief of like, if you get a failure or something, you get 24 hours to be upset about it. And then after that, you can still think about it, but you have to be proactively trying to change it. Yeah. Because the purpose of being just bitter and upset, that's not going to change anything. No one's going to feel pity for you.
Not at all. And I love that too. And when you think about it, when you can take it even further, right? And I feel like you're someone who does this too. When you fail and then you might get upset for a second and you're like, you know what? I just learned X, Y, and Z from this. And now you gain that wisdom, right? You gained almost like a notch under your belt. And to me, I feel the truly successful are just the people that failed the most because they tried the most, right? The only time you can fail is when you try. If you never try, you never have to worry about failing. But the people who constantly try to do better, they're going to fail more than anybody. But they also end up succeeding more after they fail a lot. So I love it.
I think an example is, I'm pretty sure we have to go to another topic, but I think, when you look at this, it kind of goes about people who are afraid to kind of venture outside of their wheelhouse, and those who are. A lot of times, a lot of people who stay within a certain geographic area, stay within a certain job, stay within a certain industry, they're afraid of failing somewhere else. But I don't even want to say the more successful people, but the people who have more of a ambitious spirit of themselves, and people who are willing to make those leaps and changes, they have an aggregate of different life experiences and different experiences in general that they can learn off of and lean off of to make them more pivotal in the world that they live in. So it just shows you like, hey, having more failure experiences actually makes it easier for you to navigate the world. That if you never left the city of Detroit, you never left your block. Let's say you're picked up and you're thrown in the middle of Kansas. Like, what are you going to do?
You're not going to know what to do.
You're not going to know what the hell to do. I've never been to Kansas, but I can imagine, hey, if I get there, I'm like, okay, well, let me find a phone somewhere. Let me get the fuck out of Dodge real quick. Let me do something. It's just like, you have to have an aggregate of experiences in life to truly get the most out of it. And I think that's where failure
100%.
is.
No, 100%. And we'll wrap up with this because we're nearing an hour and it's been great, but I know to do well. But something that I learned in my career as well, and I'm sure you learned, is that because of my aggregate amount of experiences, how many I had, it made it a lot easier to relate to more clients and more people than it did to my peers who might not have gone through the same level of hard times or even the same level of good times, right? They just couldn't relate to the people they were working with, for, or around them. And so that also will help you be successful. Because to your point, you get dropped in the middle of Kansas and you're used to living in the suburbs of Detroit, you're not going to know where to go. You're not going to know how to get a car, how to find a phone, how to talk to the next person you see. You're not going to understand it. So I think that was a huge point and a lot of great takeaways from everything you said, right? First and foremost, be true to yourself, be true to what your passions are, and search for that diligently. Don't just search for a dollar, search for who you want to be. And when you find who you want to be, you start finding that success. Don't forget there are a lot of people out there who haven't gotten that same opportunity and that we need to be reaching back for and doing more for, and reminding they're not in this alone. And if we can give back, we should. And even if we can't, we still should, right? We should all be giving back and sharing with each other. And as well, while you're doing all of that, fail. Failure is great. If you haven't failed, you're not living, right? Failure is the piece of life. It's the best way to enjoy it. And there are a lot of more takeaways as well. I'll probably have to listen to this one multiple times to get all the takeaways. But what I do want to do is I would like for you to just repeat what the nonprofit's name is, where we can go, everyone out there listening and myself, where we can go to get more information on it learn more how we might be able to contribute to it.
Yeah, no, I love that. So the nonprofit's name is Transforming Youths into Adults. And if you go to visit TYIA.org, you'll be able to learn more about the organization's mission, some volunteer opportunities that we're going to have within the local Baltimore area, but also we're looking for all types of opportunities for sponsorships, engagements. Really, the biggest things with me sitting on the board, we're just finding ways in which we can further integrate our mission and vision into not only the Baltimore community, but into the overarching landscape of the United States. There are multiple youth that are facing homelessness, that are in the foster care system, and that don't have stable amount of around resources. And so with any connections that we can develop in order to help further our mission and hopefully further other organization mission as well, will be extremely valuable.
I love it. And I hope everyone listening hears the passion, the sincerity in Ken's voice, right? So whenever you have a person that communicates with passion, you can imagine that anything they take part in, they're going to push the success and they're going to push the impact and help as many people as possible. So I encourage everyone to be a part of it. Join, check it out. Make sure we'll make sure the link is in the description for the nonprofit as well. Now, this is David Shaft, Ken Daniels signing off from Conversations That Count. Everyone have an amazing, successful rest of your evening. Let's go out there and impact some people. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone, for watching another episode of Conversations That Count. Sometimes what we find is YouTube will unsubscribe us from our favorite channels, as well as when we finish an episode, we'll have enjoyed it so much, we'll forget to hit the subscribe button because we'll be so caught up with it. My ask is so that we can keep the channel free, so that I can continue bringing you amazing guests, continue bringing you amazing practices that improve all of our skills as we go into every day and every week. If you can hit that subscribe button, if you can like, share, it goes a very long way to, again, keeping the channel free, allowing us to continue providing you amazing content. And my promise is I will only continue to improve the content, improve the guests, and improve the best practices every single time. I will make sure every week and every month that it only gets better for you. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.